Hello, hello, Limitless world. Hello, world. Hello, people. This is Drew here, coming to you after the Parenting Palooza that we just finished. Had the opportunity to set up at, give presentations to families and parents specifically as to how to support themselves to support their children to become effective and capable in this rapidly changing world. And the question at hand today that I kept seeing come up was it's interesting because it came out specific like this: how can I, as a parent, turn my child into a genius? And what I want you to first think about when you hear that question is, what does the word genius, what image comes to your mind when you hear that word genius? All right, for a lot of people, I'm assuming it's visions or images of people like Albert Einstein or maybe Elon Musk at Tesla, right? Just very, very high level, highly capable, scientifically minded people. And I want to dispel that because what I found genius just really means being highly effective and capable in this world, right? Being able to adapt yourself so that as things change, you are able to, still get what you need or what you want out of life. Okay. And so a lot of parents were, just asking the question around that point. And for them, obviously it was coming from an academic sense of how can I make my child super, super smart so that they will always have opportunities and they'd be able to make it in this world. So I wanted to share the perspective that I was giving out and, what I'd seen, what I've come to understand from, being in education 11, almost 12 years at this point. And just give you my background. I've been, like I said, in education for 11, 12 years, and it really first started off when I was in high school. So my older brother, he was a dean at different charter school. My older brother, when I was in high school, he was a teacher in Montclair and Glen Ridge. And if you're not from around this area, New Jersey area, those towns are like very, very upper class, you could say. Upper class, upper scale. The way I like to describe them is that like the houses there are bigger than some people's neighborhood, right? And so he was a teacher for special needs students in those regions. And every summer when I was in high school, I would, come and help him do the camps, summer camps, and work with the students, kind of see their progress, volunteer as his teacher's aide and such like that. What I came to see is that every year I came back, even though these students had access to the resources, right? They had access to everything that they could possibly need or want at that time under the sun because of their background, their family's background. A lot of these students were either staying where they're at or in some cases they were falling behind, right? They were regressing. And so me as a 15, 16-year-old at that time, I was just curious, right? I just kind of took that into the filing cabinet at the back of my mind. I was like, okay, why is this happening to these kids even though they have the resources and the access? So after I graduated from high school, I went to university, and in university I studied psychology and Chinese. Now at this point, my brother, he became a dean at different charter schools in Brooklyn, right? So like Success Academy, Achievement First, if you are familiar with the Brooklyn charter school system. And every summer I would come back to support him. During my college years, I was giving and supporting him with professional development, which is teaching teachers how to teach, right? And because these were charter schools, again, they're supposed to be a step up above public schools, supposed to be. But even though that's what they're supposed to be, I began to notice that every year I came back that the test scores for these schools, which is just how they measure the schools by, just the test scores, they weren't improving, right? They were either staying the same or in many cases they were falling behind. And so I seen a similar pattern occur that I've been seeing back home in New Jersey, right? They had all the access that they need to resources, to coaching, to professional development, to help, right? To the classroom supplies, different ways to, really manage their classroom, give lessons, but still yet the scores and the students weren't pushing that needle, weren't going to where the district had in mind or was supposed to be at. So after I graduated from college, had the opportunity to move to China, moved to Beijing, where over there I was a private tutor and education consultant for almost about three, a little bit over 3 years, right? And at this point, I had the opportunity to work with international students. And so these are kids whose parents are diplomats or they were politicians, maybe military kids or very, very successful business owners who came over to do business for some time. So again, these are the type of students who they had everything they could possibly need or really want when it came to resources. So I was helping them get into boarding schools and private universities over in the US and Europe, as being their tutor and also an education consultant. And what I started to notice is that with these children as well, they were really good at one, maybe two things, right? They're good at arts and science and engineering or piano, violin, things like that. But when they moved over to their new programs in the US or the UK, they started to write me back and email me back saying, hey, Mr. Jude, I'm having trouble being adaptable and being flexible. And so for me, that was just the third time I'd seen an occurrence like that come up over the past 8 years, right? 9 years. And so long story short, pandemic happened, had to come back to the United States. And when I came back, I was just really, really invested in solving that problem of, okay, what is going on here in education? How come between different borders from Brooklyn to Beijing and different socioeconomic classes, upper, middle, lower, I kept seeing the same thing come up and come up and come up again. So I did my research, right? I started reading, started looking at all these different points, like what actually supports a student to have a solid foundation, to be flexible, to be adaptable, to be capable in this world. And these are just some of the titles that I started looking into. You can kind of check this out. We got Holding On to Your Kids, Beginning to Read, Raising Your Spirited Child. What's this? Happy Parent, Peaceful Kids. Okay. Language and the Meaning Distortion. Unlock Fort Knox, really solid one. And then also, Simplicity Parenting, Language at the Speed of Sight. So these are just a few titles of the library I have that I really looked into this point of, okay, what is going on here in education? How can this be happening? And I boiled it down from all the research, all the reading I've been doing to two key points. And I'll show you the other point maybe in some other video, but the first point comes down to a child's parents. A lot of people think that education starts when a child goes to school. But in reality, education starts in the home. Education starts with the parents, right? And so if you want, coming to that conclusion, if you want your child to be very, very effective, be very, very successful, you as a parent also have to mirror that in everything that you do and everything that you are bringing to the child, everything that you're doing in your parenthood, because parents are the first teacher. Mothers, fathers, you are the first teacher, and you are the ones that are the most invested in your child's success, right? Nobody can care more about a child's future than their own parents. And so as a parent, you also have to be able to learn how to support yourself, to learn how to learn how to relearn, and learn how to learn all the things that you want and behaviors, ideals, values, morals that you want your child to have, because they're going to pick that up from you at an early age. There's this thing called the critical period, natural learning ability within childhood psychology, and that's within the first 7 years of a child's life. they are an open book. They're an open sponge. They're a blank canvas. And so everything that they see between 0 to 7 years old, that becomes integrated as part of their foundation. And even when they get older, if they develop bad habits, bad behaviors when they're a child, right, whatever they learn, whether it's good, bad, or maybe they didn't even learn something, it becomes a lot harder, really impossible, unless you go through a traumatic experience, to change that when they get older. And so you as a parent have the responsibility now to support yourself, to educate yourself on how to really be effective within your own life, your own self, and be able to pass that down to your children. Thing is, in these classes, there's, again, doesn't matter if you're going to private school, public school, charter school, all schools have larger than necessary class size. 15, upwards of 30 kids per class, right? And so imagine, I don't know how many kids you have, but let's say you have 2, 3 kids. Imagine your kids times 10 every single day for 6 to 8 hours a day running around your house. That is an overwhelming experience, to say the least, right? And that's what these teachers have to deal with every single day. And then they gotta go home and deal with their own family, their own situation, their own lives. And so, because there's so many kids in the class, how can a teacher be able to get to every single student to make sure that every single student has the skills that they need to be productive, successful, and confident in this world? It's physically impossible. And so that's where these you as a parent come in. I don't know if you noticed, but half of these, maybe more of the books that I just showed you, those are on parenting. Those are on how can you as a parent be able to support your child to become effective, because it all comes down to yourself, right? It all comes down to you. And so I see that this was a problem because I never seen, or I rarely see like courses and support on how to be an effective parent. We have courses on math, science, history, English, chemistry, all these different subjects, but where is the course on, okay, how can I support myself? How can you support yourself to be the best mother, the best father possible, right? I know you're busy, right? Everybody's busy, but your children are your greatest asset, your most precious resource. And so it's one thing to say, oh, I'm working all the time, I can't teach them, I can't help them. But if you know what you're doing, right? If you know the steps that you need to take as a mother or father to just set your child up for independence and success, would it be worth the 30 minutes? Would it be worth the 20 minutes before you go to work, right? First thing in the morning, before you send them to school, after they get home from school, right before bed, right before dinner, to set up a game plan, set up a system for them so that they can be able to have the foundation to be independent and through that be successful for the rest of their lives, right? But that comes through a very specific process, right? A very specific system, a way of being able to learn, a way of being able to support yourself to be able to understand that and then pass that into your kids. Because like I said, kids are a sponge. Whatever you know, however far you've gotten, right? The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. I've heard that saying before. And so you need to grow your tree as a parent. You need to build your foundation, build your base, and dig deep so that can automatically, effortlessly be transferred into a child. So that's the topic that we covered, today with the parenting palooza. Like I said, I talked to upwards of 100 parents a week at this point, and for them to be able to understand that point of, okay, I as a parent need to do something for myself while I'm also supporting my child to learn, right? That's the biggest takeaway that I've been seeing. And so passing that message on to you so you can start to think about that, right? Really start to think about that. And if you need support, if you need ideas, right? If you have questions, that's why I make these videos. That's why we make these videos, so that you can reach out, get the support that you need, right? At least have a conversation, see where the train is going, see where the track is going, and learn where to adjust by a micro degree if necessary. Thing is, to get from New York to California, if you're 3 degrees off, you end up in Canada, right? So really doubling down, really looking out, reaching out to me, to us, our team, see how we can point you at least in the right direction. Any questions? All the details, all our info is in the link below and the description. So looking forward to talking with you soon. Again, this is Jude. All the best.